So real quick before we get started, I do want to announce that I'm doing a Corp Mass this Saturday, February 15th, 2020 at 4 p.m. EST. Here's all the details you need to know. I'll be streaming it on my Twitch channel. You can just pause this if you want to read this, or it'll be in a paste bin in the description. Everyone is invited, so you can invite your friends. It'll be in the AndrewAJT 62 clan chat and Discord, and yeah, everyone's welcome. If you've never been to Corp, all you really need is D-Hide and a Zami Spear, or maybe ruby bolts and a rune crossbow. It's really easy in a mass setting. You can get there with a games necklace, and I'll meet you guys there. Thank you so much to today's Patreon sponsor, Yacht. Also, thank you so much to our brand new patron, Zacher. Their support helps make these videos possible. Hello everyone, my name is AndrewAJT, and welcome to the top 10 overrated items in old school RuneScape. So, a while back I made a video top 10 underrated items, and today we're going to count down the top 10 overrated items in the game. So this was a pretty tough list to make because most of these items are very good items. The problem with them is that a lot of them are very expensive, and there are much cheaper alternatives available that can perform pretty much just as well. So I'm not saying these items are terrible or they're really bad or anything, just that people think they're like god items, that they need to have these. Whereas you can actually have items that are much cheaper and use them, and they're going to be almost as good. You'll see what I mean. Keep in mind this is just my opinion. Don't take it personally if your favorite item is on here, but feel free to let me know if you disagree. Coming in at number 10 is the Dragonfire Shield. So this item, probably a few years ago, used to be the most overrated item in the game. Nowadays, I think more people know how bad it is, so it's not really up there anymore. It's a pretty good defensive shield, but the main reason it's been historically overrated is because of that 7 strength bonus, and people would actually use the shield over items like the Rune Defender or Dragon Defender because they just assume that because it has 7 strength bonus it must be the best, whereas it has no attack bonus whatsoever. It's kind of an odd item in that way, but if you look at other aspects of it, it gives a lot of negative mage bonus, so it's really not good for that, considering how inaccurate mage can be in the first place. It's okay for range, but the range defense is actually not great. The Crystal Shield has a better range defense, and the Spectral has a better mage defense too, so there's really no good use for this item anymore, but people still seem to think that it's one of the best shields in the game, when these days, other than getting super speed like you're seeing here, it's become kind of a useless item, to be honest. The Dragonfire attack feature is cool, but it wastes so much time to recharge it that I don't see anyone really using it ever. Number 9 is a very overrated item because it only has one use, and that is to save inventory space at a very high price. So the Super Combat Potion is a very good item because it gives you the effects of the attack, strength, and defense all in one, but that's all it does. It doesn't give you any additional bonus, and it's actually way more expensive. So it is 10k for the Super Combat, or for the exact same thing, 2.4k, so that's basically 25% of the cost for the same thing. So obviously there's many situations where you want to bring the Super Combat Potion, like Dagonoth Kings, but I see people bringing this to like Abyssal Demon Slayer tasks where inventory is not a problem at all, and often you only need the attack and strength, and sometimes you can get the defense from the brew anyway, so in many situations it's only going to save you 1 inventory space. So for the cost, yeah, there's some places it's worth bringing if inventory is a problem, but for Slayer and things where inventory is not a problem, there's really no need to bring this item and waste all that GP. Number 8 is probably going to be pretty controversial. This is ZENYTE jewelry pieces. So these items are very powerful, but they're kind of glass cannons if you think about it. So let's take a look at the Amulet of Torture, for example. Really strong melee stats, but that's basically all it does. It doesn't give anything to the other combats, it gives no defense whatsoever, and only 2 prayer bonus, whereas the Fury is so much more versatile. It gives a lot of attack still as well, not quite as much, but it gives insanely good defense, much more prayer, almost the same amount of strength. So overall, this amulet is better than the Amulet of Torture, and it's also nice because if you want to go to somewhere like DK's, for example, where you might be using different forms of combat, you can just bring the Amulet of Fury instead of bringing the Torture and the Anguish. You could kind of say the same thing with the Tormented Bracelet, The only thing really special about it is it gives 5% magic damage, and I guess the prayer is nice, but are you really going to bring a switch for that little bit of magic damage that maybe makes you hit 1 higher compared to Barrow's gloves, which are very good for all 3 forms of combat? The only one you could probably make a good argument for not being overrated is the Anguish, because it gives ranged strength, which is really hard to get. There's not many items that do give ranged strength bonus, so this is okay, but in general, most players would probably be better served putting the 50 mil for these items towards skills and saving the inventory space as well with the Barrows and Fury. Number 7 is the Anglerfish, the first food item on our list. So this item is pretty overrated because it actually doesn't really do anything too unique. For example, all these items heal 22 HP. A lot of people like to call the Anglerfish the OSRS equivalent of the Rocktail, but Rocktails healed 24 HP, not 22 like these other items, and if you're below 93 HP as far as your level, it won't actually heal you the full 22. And not to mention, this item actually got a nerf around a year or two ago. If you're in combat in the wilderness, you cannot heal above your full HP. I'll give you a little bit of a demonstration. If you watch my HP, when I'm in combat here eating, it won't go above 99. And this was actually one of its best uses in the game that is no longer applying. It's still good at the bank or in PVM in some situations, but it costs a lot more than tuna potatoes, so when you're buying thousands of these, that can add up. Only if you're very wealthy, then there's no downside to using these. Coming in at number 6 is BANDOS armor. So we're really not talking about the God Sword, the boots, or the pet. Those are actually underrated. But the armor itself, so the chestplate and the tassets, these are very, very overrated. Everybody loves strength bonus in this game. Everyone just loves having the highest hit possible, but in many situations, BANDOS is actually not the best armor. If you look at the defense, so look at the slash defense, Barrows has way better defense. That's almost 50 points higher slash defense, and you get more prayer with the Verax as well. And if you just want the strength bonus, you can actually save a lot of GP by just using the fighter torso, which if you don't care about defense anyway, then it's basically the same thing. Don't get me wrong, there are many situations where BANDOS is optimal, but I see people using it where they could have instead put that 51 mil towards construction or prayer or achievement diaries, and that would make much bigger of an impact. Number 5 is the Dragon Pickaxe. This item is a bit overrated. It's obviously the best if you can afford it, other than maybe the Crystal Pickaxe, but it's only around 5 to 6% faster than the Rune Pickaxe, and that's only when you're in the mining animation, so in reality it's a little bit less. This is a much smaller gap than the Rune Axe to Dragon Axe comparison, which is about a 10% boost. It's really expensive, it's 5 mil, so if you only need a few mining levels for a quest or something, there's not much point to it if you can't afford it. And I've seen Ironmen spend a lot of time going for this for similar purposes, which is not necessarily worth the time, especially if you're a hardcore or ultimate Ironman. Then getting this item is a huge risk, and that's not really worth it generally. But if you know you're going to be doing a lot of mining, or if you're going for 99, then it certainly will save you some time. Coming in at number 4 is Ancestral Magic Armor. Do you know that Ancestral is not even objectively the best armor in the game for Magic? It actually has worse defense than Arim's, which is actually a pretty big deal for Magic because you don't really get much defense from your robes. Now it does give you some magic damage bonus, which is good, but if you don't use the hat like many people, you're only getting 4%, which is really not a deal breaker. And for the Inferno, you don't need it at all. You can actually use no armor at all, and it works just as well in this situation. You don't need it for the start of the waves, for really any point at all in the Inferno. It's really just a luxury that kind of wastes inventory space. It is probably overall the best magic armor in the game, but it's pretty situational, and for 127 mil, for a slight upgrade and worse defense, I don't really see a need for it, unless you have quite a bit of GP to spend. Let me ask you a question, and see if you know the answer in your head before I reveal the answer. So, do you know how much more range bonus you get from the ARMADYL chestplate and ARMADYL chain skirt compared to the D-Hide and Kirill's top and bottom? Is it 25? Is it 18? Is it 15? Is it 30? No, it is 5. I'm not kidding. Most people don't know this. It's only 5 more than D-Hide. It's really not much of a difference at all. And for the top and bottom, it's 70 mil. That's around 14 mil per extra range bonus. Now you do get some more defense, but the range defense is actually the same, at least compared to Kirill's. You do get prayer bonus from ARMADYL, but you can get the same prayer from God D'hide. And ARMADYL has to deal with the negative attack bonus, which is really bad. You can't do other forms of combat effectively while wearing this armor, so you have to bring a switch. In many cases, it's just not even worth it for such a slight upgrade, especially considering the ridiculous price of ARMADYL armor. The second most overrated item in the game is probably the ELYSIAN Spirit Shield. This item is really cool. It has damage soaking potential, which is really unique for old school. Unfortunately, in almost every circumstance, you're better off using an offensive shield like the Dragon Defender, or even the books, or the Malediction Ward, Odium Ward, shields like that, because by doing more damage, you can actually kill monsters faster and save yourself some HP. Not to mention, this shield is pretty unreliable. There's always a small chance of the soaking not activating for a hit. That can leave you vulnerable, especially in PvP. It's definitely very good in some situations. It does make the game easier in some places, but for 800 mil, for such a situational item, and one with actually not very good defensive bonuses as far as accuracy goes, it is a little bit overrated. The most overrated item in the game is the Twisted Bow. Now this will shock a lot of people because the Twisted Bow is obviously an extremely good item. It's very, very powerful, hits very hard, but it has a lot of flaws. Really, its main one is accuracy. It is not a very accurate weapon whatsoever. Part of the problem is it only has a very, very, very low base range bonus of plus 70. That is only one more range bonus than a magic shortbow, which is worth about 800 GP. Even the old school crystal bow has a range bonus of plus 100, and it has a faster attack speed than the Twisted Bow. So right off the bat, it's not good for PvP, and it's not good versus almost every monster in the game other than bosses, because as we know, versus bosses, you get that magic level based boost to its accuracy and damage. But this increase was actually nerfed pretty significantly in 2017, making it much worse, and some bosses actually have their magic level reduced, like BANDOS, just so the Twisted Bow wouldn't be good against them anymore. Furthermore, this boost can actually be a lot more significant to its damage rather than its accuracy, so on bosses like Kriera, yeah, you can hit a 50, but you might hit 5 zeros in a row before you do that. The Blowpipe is better versus almost every monster in the game, costing only 3 mil, whereas the Twisted Bow is a bill. And even on the bosses where the Twisted Bow is better, the Blowpipe is usually only slightly worse. You typically need to sacrifice defense and get a lot of range bonus to make the Twisted Bow hit reliably, and especially considering you can't use a shield, your defense can actually be quite bad with the Twisted Bow. The Twisted Bow still is amazing, and it is the best bow against some very powerful bosses, but for an item that's so expensive, and for one that many people consider to be the best item in the game, it is actually quite limited in some situations, and you could probably think of all the bosses just off the top of your head that it's actually good against, and for the price point, that's pretty surprising. The things that are great about it is, of course, that it hits very high. It also has a very good prayer bonus and shoots from very far away, which is a big problem with the Blowpipe, which has a very short range by comparison. But overall, people who have never used this item tend to think it's a lot better than it actually is. So there you have it. Those are the top 10 overrated items in old school RuneScape. Do you think I left any items out? I was thinking of maybe the Primordial Boots or Dragon Gloves. Or do you think some of these items really don't deserve to be on this list? Let me know in the comments. Again, just because an item is on my list doesn't mean it's bad. In fact, most of these items are obviously quite good, but they're not as good as people say, and sometimes that GP towards them can be better put towards skills like Construction, Prayer, Achievement Diaries, Herblore. In general, gear is not as important in this game as people make it out to be. If you're dedicated to something, you can pretty much accomplish a goal with almost any gear in this game, regardless of how cheap it is. Definitely hit the like button if you agree with anything I said in this video. Also, be sure to check out our top 10 underrated items. That was a very fun video as well. That'll be in the end screen and also in the description. You can subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and hit bell notifications to all to get the new video every Tuesday. You can join our clan chat, AndrewAJT62, and I'll see you guys there at the Corp Mass this Saturday. All the details will be right in the description, and you can invite anyone you like. You can join our Discord down below. You can follow me on Twitter down below at AndrewAJT, and I'll follow you back if you play RS. Lastly, if you want to support the channel even further, you can check out my Patreon page in the end screen. Thank you all so much for watching. Let me know your thoughts, and I'll see you guys next week.